Today is Tuesday. It's December the 7th, 2021. My joy to come to you with today's devotional from heartofashepherd.com. The title of this devotional is A Nation's Leaders Are Indicative of the Character of Its People. Now, our scripture reading for today, Proverbs 28, Proverbs 29. This is the first of two devotionals that I will post today. This one will be focused on Proverbs chapter 28 and verse 2. Now, before I go there, I want to encourage you as you listen to these video devotionals, please make a point of liking them if you do, and also of subscribing either on the video channel or also subscribing to heartofashepherd.com, and you can receive these written devotionals in your email box every day. Now, Proverbs 28 verse 2, the focus of this devotional, and we read, "For the transgression," or it could mean the sins or the wickedness of a land, many of the princes thereof, but by a man of understanding and knowledge, the state thereof shall be prolonged. Now, the truths conveyed in Proverbs 28 and verse 2 are both political and spiritual in nature. Solomon, the king of Israel, was burdened that his son be prepared to rule the nation. Now, understanding the powerful influence of a nation's leaders and the influence they have upon its people, the king stated a couplet of wisdom that we find in Proverbs 28 and verse 2, that you and I would be wise if we understood and heeded his advice. Proverbs 28 and verse 2, I'm going to amplify now the verse that we're looking at. For the transgression, literally the sin or the guilt of a land, of a nation, of a country. Many are the princes, the chiefs, the commanders, the rulers thereof. But by a man of understanding, that is a man of discernment, and knowledge, the knowledge that is gained by life experiences, the state, the rightness, and the well-being of a nation thereof shall be prolonged or shall continue to exist. Now, there are two spiritual lessons and principles that we find here in Proverbs 28 verse 2. The first is this: a rebellious, sinful nation becomes afflicted with many leaders. Here in the United States, we call them bureaucrats. Not just the ones that we elect, but the ones that are appointed or hired to positions of authority and positions of power over us. Now, Proverbs 28 and verse 2, in the first half of this verse, indicates that when a nation turns its back on God, rejects his law and commandments, its people turn to a bloated bureaucracy for its leadership. Again, we read, many are the princes thereof. And as a result, such a nation becomes weak and divided. Now, that truth is seen in nearly every nation of our day. Almost without exception, there is a void in principled leaders, and the world has become a more dangerous place for all. You see, when a nation lacks timeless, unassailable principles, that nation inevitably will be ruled by government agencies and led by corrupt, immoral politicians. Now, the second half of Proverbs 28 verse 2 reads, by a man of understanding, a man of discernment, and knowledge gained from life experiences, the state thereof shall be prolonged. You know, a nation is blessed when it is ruled by godly leaders who have wisdom, insight, and discernment. Whether a king, queen, president, or senator, integrity and dependence on God impart a stability and a sense of security that prolongs a nation's life and prosperity. Now, here's a great lesson for you today, and it is the character of a leader, not the office he holds, defines his leadership. A man might be elected to be president, to be vice president, to be a senator, a member of the House of Representatives, to be a governor, to be a mayor, even to be a judge. But it's not the office, but the character of the man that defines his leadership. Now, that principle is true of a nation, city, state, school, church, congregation, and yes, our own families. Men and women of godly character make wise decisions that pave the way to health and happiness. Now, closing thoughts. The decline of a nation runs parallel to the decay in the moral fiber of its people. If you are an American and you question why the United States has lost its role as the world's leader and force for good, you need to look no further than the character of the men and women in power. But sadly, the moral character of a nation's leader is indicative of its people. They are who we are. Now, I do not want to leave you feeling hopeless and wrestling with despair, for there is something you and I can and must do. And that is, we must pray for our nation, leaders, and all those that are in authority. Paul writes to Timothy in 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 1 and 2, I exhort, therefore, that first of all supplications, prayers, intercessions, given of thanks be made for all men, verse 2, for kings, for all that are in authority, that we may lead a quiet and peaceable life in all godliness and honesty. You wonder why your nation and the world is in turmoil? It is because we have put in offices throughout the world men of ungodly character, and we will suffer for it. I hope this will give you cause to pray. This devotional will be followed by a second devotional, and again, I invite you, take a moment and encourage this pastor and writer, and like this video, and subscribe to heartofashepherd.com. Bye-bye.